Owen Yeoman and Tim Kang aren't real cops, but they're
TV Police!
the TV Police.
Neely Police! Blake Neely very kindly lent us his studio, so I thought I'd mix it up. Our guest today well, he needs no introduction to us. He is one of the founding forces behind The Mentalist. Chris Long, our executive producer and director from the series. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me and my friend.
There he is. That guy.
Which is on the wall of Blake Neely's studio, which of course means we know how proud Blake is. I saw the podcast you did with him the other day, how proud he is of the work, and it's just screams. There's so much mentalist, memorabilia around here.
And the intro, in the intro, what I was thinking was Chris Long.
I mean, sure, yeah.
Like it.
By season 2, I think we would have got.
Is that the first one he sung, by the way?
How many have you done?
That was my second one.
Yeah, I was very sick one week. And
you brought me into one, so we did it together. So, But that's my first solo one.
That is.
Like it. Felt good. And I felt it.
Yeah.
And I felt it. One second, let me just readjust myself so I can get the Mentalist Watch.
There we go. We got
there
a nice pop of the long eans in there.
Ah, there
very
it is.
nice.
Maybe I'll get a free one.
Is that the watch that Jane actually wore in the show?
It is, yeah.
Wow.
This is the Longines that he wore in the show, and then on the last day of filming, Simon took it off and threw it, and I caught it, thank God. And he kindly gave me this.
What a coincidence that Simon Baker and Patrick Jane both had watch deals with Longines.
What a coincidence!
How lucky are we?
And then as I walked away, I remember Matthew Carlisle, who's the producer, I said, "Oi, that's not his to give." And I was like, I think it actually is. So,
mine now.
Anyway, so I never got a bill from Longines or anybody anyway. But I'm very proud of it, and I wear it. Not very often because I wear this on the other hand. But I am very proud of it and love it, and it reminds me very much of some excellent times that we all spent together.
Here. And I think it's a wonderful sort of symbol of the passing of time. And we just can't, every time we've got together with guests, we just cannot believe that it's almost been 17 years now since the show has started. But
17
years. I mean, 2025, we started in 2008, right?
Yeah.
And like we were talking about, we have been so floored by the global existing audience and new audience too for the show. Talk to us a little bit about the enduring appeal of The Mentalist. What is it that you think, you've had a incredible, long and storied and tremendously successful career. What is it about The Mentalist that popped? Because it holds a special place in all of our hearts, and I know it does in yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think for two things. Well, there's the whole personal journey that we all went on. So why did we bond as a team? That's one thing. And there's also why did it pop as a TV series? And I think that, well, first of all, it's timeless. I mean, the way that the setup of the whole piece and Simon and you guys and the characters we create is absolutely timeless. And so when you look at it now, it still holds up. And I think, that's why it's finding a younger audience. And it really is comfort food. I mean, it's one of those that, you can like, we can go through it, scene to scene, and there's some really good moments in there. There's bits of comedy, there's shock, there's lots of heart in it. And also you can follow the bouncing ball with the plot or not if you want to. The clues are all laced in. So I think it's something that is, and I mean this as its strength, not its weakness. It's easily digestible. So, and therefore people always come back to it. And then to create for us as all of us that were on the show, to create an environment like that. I mean, it comes from the people that were on it. Everybody was a good people. We had sort of like a no rule about being around it. Everyone was there, keen to do the work, wanted to be there. And, I think we were, Bruno and I were shocked about how much it took off. I mean, it sort of went from, when the pilot aired, it got very good numbers. And Peter Roth called us up. Peter was the head of Warner Bros. At the time. And, he said, look, don't get above yourselves. Let's talk about what the rate of attrition is going to be and what we're expecting the drop-off to be next week. And the next week it was bigger. And the next week it was bigger. Right. And the next week it was bigger. And the next week it was bigger. And by episode 5 and 6, we were still building. And the show was number one at least one week in 1 week. That's that first season. I can't remember which episode it was.
Which week it was actually.
Yeah.
It was episode
Was
9.
it possibly Flame Red?
Was it?
So we always
Yeah.
joke because it was Rigsby's arson episode. and I always say to Tim, I'm like, see, great things happen.
Yeah, when you showcase
Yeah.
Rigsby.
When you foreground Rigsby.
Yeah,
There you go.
Of course.
And the insight into his arson episode. I think 18.3 million viewers, narrowly beating out Desperate Housewives, September the 29th,
says it all, huh?
2008,
Yeah,
roughly.
18.3.
Around there, yeah, around.
You see, I don't think it was 18.3, and I'm going to lean out of frame and do something here.
You're going to check it?
Yeah,
I
you're
think
good.
it was more than that.
Here we go.
Because
well, that's domestic numbers.
yes, domestic numbers.
Let's go global.
Look at that.
Let's go global, baby. Because this is an award, a trophy, an award that Owen picked up. I think was Robin there too when you picked
It
it
was
up?
just me. Yeah, just me.
In Monte Carlo. And we got this award,
The Golden Nymph Award.
the Golden Nymph, as they say. We got this award, and I wrote on the bottom so that we could, so years pass when I'm long gone, somebody will pick this up and go, what the frick is this all about?
Yeah.
In 2012, we were the most watched TV drama series in the world with 58.1 million viewers in 66 countries.
That's
wow,
absurd.
58.1
That's
million.
crazy. Wow.
And that's why we got the Golden Nymph. So
That is incredible.
that is
Thank you
exciting.
so much for bringing that, Chris. And I
Yeah.
have really fond memories of collecting that because it was in the height of the show's power.
Yeah.
In 2012,
Yeah.
it premiered in 2008, so we would have been around season 3 or 4. And Without a Trace, Cold Case, all of these procedural shows were very earnest and very dark.
Yep.
Our show came along, had a very dark-rooted storyline as the sort of, the Red John of it all, obviously.
Right.
But tonally, there were these really, really light, wonderful moments and a lot of humor. Was that intentional from the start? Was that going to be a sort of tonal disruptor, the idea?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, we always, credit that, one of the successes of the show being that it came out of 2008. We just gone through a horrible recession. There was darkness. And Bruno has that light touch. And Simon could play it. And Simon played it in spades. So I think it was created one way. And then, you guys all did the pilot together, so and then it became more of a light as it went on. Sometimes we crossed the line. I think that we did an episode with a monkey one time that was like,
We've talked about
we
that.
took out the monkey
yeah.
at length.
Sometimes we crossed the line and we went, oh, there's the line. And we just like, yeah. So I think that was definitely part of the success of it. But I think it got, as we were trying to find the tone of it and how much humor you could play. And even this episode that has a ton of dark in it. One of my, I hadn't seen this episode for how many years this is.
That was going to be my
17
next
years or whatever,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just pissed myself when Rigsby went like this.
Yeah. I was just talking to him.
Did
about
you
that.
ad-lib that, or
I
was that
did.
written?
Yeah.
I think
so.
I don't remember.
That was great.
That that was
She was great. That woman.
Oh, yeah.
She was
the whole niece.
dry as
pretty
hell.
niece.
Yeah.
she was as dry as
Oh, yeah.
white dog poop. She was. And that's pretty dry. She was fantastic. But that little moment, that was, how that's what made this show special, was those sort of little touches, those sort of little moments, those sort of wink and a nod. Like, I love the other little piece where he says, where the guy gets hit with a bit of wood and he goes, shake it off, big guy.
Shake it off, dude.
You'll be fine. Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah,
You're gonna
shake
be
it
okay.
off.
Yeah.
Well,
Pat
what I
himself.
find fascinating, so I was having a conversation a few weeks ago, and I mentioned this in the previous episode, with a good friend of mine who's a writer, and he said, you don't understand. Bruno Heller's pitch document for The Mentalist has been my pitch Bible for the last 10-something years.
Yes.
And so he kindly sent it to me.
Yep.
What is remarkable about it, other than a few name changes, is it's all there.
Yeah.
And, I've read a multitude of pitch documents. I've written a multitude of them.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
being able to distill 7 seasons and change into 8 pages, which is basically what it was. Have it written almost like it was a sort of first-person imagined narrative as well. So it was like just a stream of consciousness. This is how I see it.
Yep.
It's remarkable. One question that comes from that we've asked a lot of people, and I want to get your take on this, is Bruno, I believe, claims that he knew who Red John was from the get-go.
Right.
Give us your take on that.
I love this question because, and I've heard, I've listened to a few other people that have been on the podcast, on your podcast.
Sure.
So And I've heard everyone's take on it. So I also love the fact that this is a bit sort of mythology that is sort of like a little whatever.
Fact check us on this.
Fact check us on this. Yeah.
You don't think you did? Or you know you didn't?
I think he had an idea.
Sure.
And I think that when he first set out with it, he definitely had an idea that it could be, but I don't think it was nailed on. I think he wanted to see how it played out. Right. And then, when we got to, okay, we're going to reveal who Red John is, we did have a couple of really good sessions of reverse engineering who it actually could be.
Sure.
Who it could be, honestly. Because obviously the person can't just drop from the sky.
Sure.
Because that would be a betrayal of storytelling to the audience. So we definitely sat around and came up with the names of, well, it could be this person, it could be this person.
Who are the very nearly Red Johns?
Yeah, right.
Oh my God. Well, the very near were all the people on that are in sort of, I don't want to spoil the ending, but there's a whole episode about it. Basically, we created that episode about all the also rans.
Right.
Which was, Malcolm McDowell's character and
Bertram,
all those. But they all came out of us going, well, who could it be? And then, well, is it really interesting if we point all that out to the audience and let the audience try and figure it out?
Well, and we did have a couple of great fake acts too.
Yeah,
because I remember Bradley Whitford.
Bradley was great. That was one of my favorite episodes.
And I actually thought, I think I even tweeted at the time something to the effect of, we're finally revealing Red John, because I think what people don't realize is that we didn't know either. So let's sort of take ourselves a little bit back a step here, because I'd love to hear about your journey to the Mentalist and how has that panned out, and talk us through how that led to the Mentalist.
Sure. Okay. Well, interesting. Well, the Mentalist journey is a super fun one, and my roots of Bruno came through David Nutter. But how did I get into Hollywood in the first place? When I was a wee lad in dreary England, I'd come home from school and I would watch Lost in Space and Chips.
Amazing.
And those were my two. One was about being somewhere else in a different universe, and one was about being in a different country.
In California.
In California. And I was obsessed. I was absolutely obsessed. And it was really gave me the impetus to want to be a part of it, to get out there and want to do it. And I was always incredibly interested in movies, TV, music, and just trying to live outside the space that I was in, because I found that to be the creative outlets. So
was the family in the business?
No one was in the business. No.
What was their take on it? Because I remember what my family's take was when I said, "Oh, I'd like to go into entertainment." How did they
get a proper job?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I went to music studios. So this is not so far away from where I started. I went into the music business and I started to work in music studios.
Right.
And sort of like this, I'm going to give you a very, very quick journey of it. I went from working in the music business in music studios to doing sort of post-production in sound. So I started off in sound, in making records, things like that, and then I went into post-production at a company called Molyneux in London, you probably know, and was a dubbing mixer there. And then when I moved to the States, when I was about 30, so I've lived literally half my life in the States and half my life in England. So
I've got more British as I've got to know you.
Yeah,
I swear you're more Cockney now than when I first met you.
That's so funny. And so maybe because I go back there a lot, I don't know. But I am your actual half and half.
Right.
So yeah. And so when I came to the States, I was really sort of either had two strands to what I could do. I could either go to the music business, or I could do I could go into post-production.
Sure.
First job I ever went for was to be a recording engineer for Steely Dan.
Oh wow!
And they didn't give me the job. Which is why I'm sitting here with you today.
Our game.
Yeah, there you go. Steely Dan's lost. So that would have been super interesting, because for sure I would have done that job if I'd taken it. Anyway, so then I started working basically as a supervising sound editor on shows like Midnight Caller and those sort of shows. And I went from there quickly to associate producer. Associate producer in television is a post producer. Mm-hmm. So I became in charge of the sound and the picture and everything else, the finishing of the show. from that, I got into producing into directing on a show called Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. Which was
there was never an editing stint in there. Wasn't there an actual editing?
I was supervising editor a lot, but I never actually sat in the chair and edited.
And
okay, yeah, no, never did that.
Yeah, for some reason I remember I thought you were saying that you
you probably got
a Jimmy Gadd type of editing
stint,
but that never happened.
No, I never actually sat in the chair and edited like that. I think it was being wrapped into my post-production background and sort of like overseeing a lot of the editing process as a post-producer.
That's part of that.
Yeah. So understanding post really led me to directing. It was, that's the thing that for me, that is one of the absolute things I would say to any aspiring filmmakers, directors that are watching.
Nina actually brought that up too, about how she was exposed to all those different departments, facets of the post-production process, and how that ultimately helped her directing.
100%.
You got to know where you're going to end up, and how to get there now.
Yeah, because you have to know which pieces you're going to need in the end to tell the story. It's also a great way of not just shooting everything and letting somebody else sort it out. It's like, it's knowing how it glues together was really helpful.
Was director always the focus, or were you just sort of, was being a director always the focus in the back of your mind, or was it sort of
it actually wasn't. It actually wasn't. And it only really, because I think I was a bit intimidated by the process of, of actually, taking on that large thing. But I was doing, and when I got into post-production, well, we did, like I say, we did the show called Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, with the guy who was my mentor, a guy called Bob Singer. And when we went on to that show,
relation?
No.
Bobby?
No.
No.
Great guy.
That's the worst.
Great guy. And no relation to Abby.
No relation.
You can now explain what Abby Singer means.
Right.
We'll get to that. So yeah, and the show was a little bit of a mess when we first got onto it, and they had to step down and reshoot a whole bunch of it, and none of the directors were around to do it. So I was one of the people that was like responsible for trying to like glue it all together about what I felt we were missing from each scene, each shot. Some scenes were fully missing, some scenes were just really not very well put together because they were lacking the footage. This was a time where the TV model was geared around 7 or 8 days of shooting because it was built on shows. That's all they required, like Knots Landing and Dallas and things like that. They were basically glorified soaps. The 80s,
window.
And then people like Stephen Bochco showed up, and shows like The X-Files showed up, and then Lois and Clark showed up, where it was like these things became like little mini movies, and there was much more to them, and they couldn't fit into that 8-day pattern anymore. But that was the sort of box that they'd been set up in, and so therefore all of those shows and all of those showrunners went through this period of like flexing our creative muscle and flexing the financial muscle. And it was either they were going to double down on making those kind of shows, and those kind of shows were becoming incredibly successful, or they were going to back off and go back to making the soapier, cheaper type shows.
Is that when that started, the more cinematic nature of television? Was that era of that era. X-Files and
X-Files, exactly. Right. X-Files, the Bochco shows. I'm going to put us in the hat with that, Lois and Clark. Those, they were the shows where we really started to break out visually.
I mean, Lois and Clark was a huge global hit as well.
Yeah, it was a huge global hit.
Was that your first taste of sort of television success?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it was. Yeah, and I started to. It's funny actually because I really wanted to, after we'd sort of put the whole thing together and the first season, and like I said, done all these pickup shots, and we'd sort of like got the show back on track. And it was a show that the head of Warner Bros. At the time, which actually was Les Moonves, was really fond of and really knew it would be a global success. So once we got that put back on track, I went to the showrunner, who's, like I said, his name was Bob Singer, and I said, "Hey, we did all that. I want to direct one." And he was like, "No, you ain't ready." And he said, "No, glad we had this chat.
Thanks, but no
go
thanks.
away." Anyway, so he said, "This is what you need to do. You know a lot about post-production. You don't understand about the crews, the shooting of it." I was married to an actress. My wife, Erin, was an actress at the time. So I felt like I understood about how to be around actors. but it was like, and you know, it was absolutely right. I wasn't ready. So I did like, you know, a year on the set, a year when I wasn't in my post-production duties, a year on the set, a year of like trailing around trying to, you know, trying to understand everything I could about
Shadowing.
shadowing. Yeah, basically shadowing. Yeah, trying to learn the craft of what I didn't know, which was a lot. You know, about how the sharp end and the front end of it worked. So anyway, so the time came, and eventually I did get to do my episode, and it happened. It turned out it was called Double Jeopardy, and it was Double Jeopardy.
How many seasons were you in at this point?
We're, I think, season 3.
Okay.
Maybe it was season 4. No, season 3 or 4. I was very lucky. It was an extremely good script, and Terry Hatcher was cloned in it, and she got to play multiple parts, and she was excellent in that part. And the show turned out really, really well through an enormous amount of help that I got from a lot of people. So it also like became like the episode that year Warner Brothers put up for like Emmy consideration. Just as I showed it to Bob Singer, who was the showrunner, I was like very nervous for him to watch it. Obviously, my first effort, but I knew it was a good show. And he walked out and he stuck his head in my office and he said, "Looks like I created another monster." And then he just walked off. You know, that's what he said to me. And then about literally 5 minutes later, he called up and said, "Come to my office." And so I went in and he said, "Yeah, you did good, kid." And he goes, "I just got a call, and the director that's supposed to be starting this week just dropped out." And he threw another script at me and he said, "You're going in again." Yeah. So I was very lucky. That show turned out to be abysmal. And I was like, I didn't have, because the script wasn't that great.
Right.
And I didn't have the skills, the talent to put it together.
To juice it up a little bit.
So what I learned was, when I had a great script that I could get my arms around and with a lot of help, but I couldn't. So it was a very, very sort of C- script that maybe we got to a C. Right. So I had this one great episode and one really crap episode. And it was like, I can guarantee you, if they'd come around the other way around, if I'd done that crap episode, I never would have got the good episode. So it was a stroke of luck. And sometimes you just need a little bit of luck.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you think that had you had more experience, it wouldn't have been a crap episode? I mean, if you start with a weak script, it's hard to
I could have got it. I feel like I could have got it to a B, because I would have pushed. Well, I would have pushed back harder on, you know, a lot of the things, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the script stuff, and a lot of the, you know, and come up with a lot more plan to do it. But I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the skill to do it. So anyway, I sort of survived on this one episode. And every time I was like, "So how many episodes am I going to do next season?" And he was like, "You did this really crap." And
But let's think about the other one.
What about this one over here? Shiny. Anyway, so I got another couple of episodes the next season. And anyway, so I walked out the end of Lois and Clark with, I don't know, half a dozen episodes. And so I became a director from that. I was working a lot with David Nutter. David Nutter directed the pilot of The Mentalist. He directed many pilots. He is the iron chef of pilots. He is the stuff of legends for, you know, for actors.
He's just an amazing
and picking talent and an amazing human being. Yes. And so he was executive producing a series called Roswell. And I did an episode of like the original Roswell. I did an episode of that with him. And then we just started working together a lot. It seemed that every single show that David was on, I was around. And it was like, it happened with Dark Angel, it happened with Smallville, it happened with, I can't remember, so many others. And it just that. And so David was directing the episode, the pilot episode of The Mentalist. And he kept saying, "You and Bruno are going to love each other. You and Bruno are going to love each other. And, you know, you guys would really get on. And I want you to come in to meet Bruno." But at the time, I'd sort of just broken out of this sort of, the network TV sort of procedural stuff. And I'd just gotten into sort of high-end cable and stuff like that. I'd just been doing shows for effects with a show called Dirt with Courtney Cox, which is where so many of the people came from that you've spoken to before. And also I just did Weeds, and I was just like, I don't really want to go back to, not go back to, I didn't want to go back to 24 episodes a season. That's what I didn't want to go back to. I enjoyed the creative freedom a bit more of working in the cable space, because there's a lot more latitude in the cable space, as you guys know. And then so I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't really want to do it. So and David was like, "Oh, you got to go meet Bruno. You got to meet Bruno. You got to meet Bruno." And I was a huge fan of Rome, like a massive fan of Rome. So I was like, "Oh, okay, I want to go and meet, Bruno because I want to talk about Rome." So I remember so clearly getting in the car and driving to Warner Brothers. And in those days, they wouldn't let you see the episode before. So you'd walk into some executive's office and watch the pilot, and then you take the meeting. So that's all the time you got. Like, you just would go and you'd watch the pilot. So I went to Melinda Hagee's office. And Melinda Hagee was a fantastic and supportive and wonderful executive at Warner Brothers. I went to her office and I watched the pilot, and I was like, wow, this is really good. This is really good. But walking from the office to meet Bruno, I called my wife and I said, and she was like, "Oh, you had to meet Bruno." And we were talking about Rome. We were just massive Rome fans. And I said, "I'm not going to do it. It's really good, but I'm not going to do it. I don't want to take on another 22. I just feel like,
right.
like I just
I'm
need.
good for network
Yeah,
TV.
I'm good. I'm good. I don't want to do it." And I went, and of course, I walked out. I met Bruno and walked out 3 hours later. Like, I'm doing it.
I love it.
Because I walked in and him and I we hit it off. Like, it was so funny. We were born about just a few weeks apart, from a few miles apart.
Crazy.
And we had so much in common, apart from the fact that he's a Spurs fan and I'm a Fulham fan.
Wow. Yeah, no, we were going to have a conversation about that.
And Gilzine. Oh, look at that in the background.
Hey, hold on, let me go grab her.
By popular demand, Amanda Righetti!
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the TV Police.
A real golden nymph.
Yes.
Hey, there we go.
Our cast golden nymph. Obviously, no stranger to the TV Police. Always a thrill to have you here. Thank you so much. And we had been speaking about trying to, bring you in covertly.
I am fully honoured.
Yeah, that was
Amanda Righetti.
The look on your face was great.
We all know Bruno. He's not a man of many words. I think that's fair to say, right? So, but it has a quiet persuasiveness about him. Yeah. And I'm thinking of Blake's episode, I guess that economy of words has a certain persuasion about it, because I remember when Blake said, "Did you want to meet up with me, Bruno, and maybe give me some notes?" And apparently Bruno just turned around to him and said, "Well, why would I do that? You're a professional.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
I love
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Away you go."
Bruno was always very considered when he spoke.
Yes.
And because of that, I would try to finish his sentences a lot, because I'm not.
Did you get it right most of the time? Or?
No, so it would go like this. It would go something like, he'd be like, and I'd be like, Bruno. And I'd be like, and I would say, "So what says that?" And he'd go, "Not that, but yeah." It would be like, because he was. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but he just had this like very considered manner of speaking.
But you
very
guys
deliberate.
You guys made a great double act.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Bruno would
upstairs, downstairs.
and then we'd have you go, "No, it's not that." No,
Well, it's funny because also Bruno used to be a sound guy.
Was he really?
That's
He
right.
used to be a boomer.
Know that?
Yeah.
And he would say that the reason he learned to write was he listened to so much crap dialogue in his life. Just hanging a boom over there with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And because I remember when David Nutter directed the very first episode of this season, and we were out on a tech scout. Tech scout is when you take all of the technicians, the key technicians around to look at the locations before you start shooting. We're on this tech scout with David, because David Nutter was directing, and there was we were at this restaurant and there was this fountain running, and so Bruno's like, "Are we going to get that fountain off?" And I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Because that's going to ruin the sound." I go, "Yeah, I know." So he's like, he goes, "What about that fountain?" I go, "You know what, Bruno? We're both not sound guys anymore, and I think we've got somebody on this team somewhere that can figure out how to get that fountain off.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to worry about it. I think we have other worries."
That's amazing. But just checking that the
that fountain's going to get shut. Yes, mate.
Oh my God, old habits.
Old habits, right? Yeah. But yeah, no, he just is, not only has this unbelievable sensibility around him, but he's, got this very dry personality.
A note that's come up consistently with both reference to Bruno and especially to you was the amount of agency you gave people and how appreciated that was. I'm thinking especially of people like Nina, of, young up and coming writers who maybe hadn't been as enfranchised. There was a real sense on The Mentalist, from what I can tell, that people were given a shot. Yeah. And I think you used to say to Nina something to the effect of, responsibility is taken as well as earned, or something like that. And I think that that's a
responsibility
nice
is taken, not given.
Not given, right?
Yeah. And we do believe that. And there was a lot of people, Geary as well. He came up and he directed a lot of episodes. Jimmy, and I think it was really about, somebody gave me and Bruno a chance in the early days. And what we both learned is that if the success, we don't need to be like the ones that are like these auteurs that like want to take credit for everything. And there are a lot of people that you've met in this business that are like that, writers, showrunners, directors that have got this like pixie dust, like come and sprinkle the pixie dust on it sort of mentality. And we were never like that. We were always just very sort of nuts and bolts about how it went together. And in supporting, we honestly believe that if we could bring along, people, if we could bring along a team, they would just make us look good.
Right.
So it felt that was the right way to go. Give empowerment to everybody, to the actors, to everybody, to within reason. To and I think that we made a lot of changes with the crew, and we weeded out everybody, and we got a team that was like really, really solid by the time we got to sort of the end of this first season and the second season, and we become this hit. And so the hit also attracted, not only did it bring about an unbelievable sense of achievement for us all, but it also when we had positions that came open, it attracted the highest quality of people to us. And if they weren't, then they weren't around. We had an unbelievable crew.
We really did.
Yeah, we really did.
What's astonishing too, just to piggyback on what you're just saying there, Chris, is that every person that we've talked to in some way, shape, or form has commented that they've gone on to great careers, done other things and other shows and all these kinds of things. They haven't ever been on another set that was quite like The Mentalist.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice. Great sets, great environments, etc., but nothing that comes even close to kind of comparing with what we had at that time, which is amazing.
We talked a lot about that too, didn't we? And there was a especially familial vibe. Like I know everyone always describes this as a family, or but some of the families are a bit more dysfunctional. Whereas I always felt like, look at us, 20 years on. How many people actually want to get together 20 years on, unless the experience was just a life-changing one? And it was. And I think that, to your great credit, Chris, and to Bruno, you set up a group of people who not only gave the most supportive environment to us, but also just couldn't wait to do their best version of whatever it is
they're doing. And
I love that. Like, I love the fact that whether it was Lance and Dan at sound, turning on fountains or turning them off, whatever it is,
for Bruno,
or it was hair and makeup, the sense of nostalgia and of it holding a special place, and that, I think, is in no small part due to you, my friend. And thank you for that,
time.
because you put together a very special group of people. And listen, we're here because of that today. To celebrate that.
Well, they don't make them like they used to either, though.
No.
It was a very different model.
It was
a very different model.
It's not like that anymore.
No, that's all changed. I heard you saying the other week, shows like The Pit are bringing it back.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they've reinvented the wheel with The Pit. It's like laughable.
Right.
Absolutely laughable.
What has been interesting watching it from and I guess we can call ourselves all veterans now, not you and Andy, you're way too young, is that you do see cycles in the industry. And I remember streaming coming out and thinking, oh, this is exciting, uninterrupted television. And then suddenly the streamers went, you know what we're missing?
Commercials.
Yes. And we could make quite a lot from ad revenue. It's like, we've been doing that on network TV for a minute
forever.
Yeah.
House of Cards really sort of changed the entire landscape. Once House of Cards came out,
and it got some traction.
Fincher directing and everything else. Netflix were just a company that, as we know, we just would return our DVD.
The old red box.
The old red box. That's what it was. And they came out, and it's like they're making content now. But whoever made that decision to go with House of Cards, which was an IP that was already successful, with Fincher, that's an amazing choice, because that thing became massive, and then that legitimized what it could do. And then I think that, and I'm going to say this and it may be a little bit controversial, I think collectively we drove that side of the business over the cliff for two reasons. One was that from a from a standpoint of, oh, they're going to let's do exactly what we want to do. Sure, because that was the thing that so creatively we wanted to run to it, because it was like, oh yeah, they're going to give us all this money. Suddenly, these streaming shows, it's nothing to be a budget of 10, 12, 15 million dollars just for a regular show. You look at what the morning show costs, or just for a regular show, it's nothing. I'm not talking about something that deserves to be that, like Game of Thrones, which is way more, of course. But it was.
Give the viewers at home a kind of an insight into what a typical Game of Thrones episode might cost.
Yeah, I didn't direct it, but I mean, I'm sure that that's like a 30, 35.
I was going to say north of 25.
Yeah, and also Lord of the Rings. I know I've got some good friends that are directing that at the moment. It's like it's crazy amount of money, but the system breaks when it doesn't become a business. So if you have companies like Netflix are a business and they're a really good business, but you have a company that basically, like Amazon, which moves boxes for a living.
Sure.
That's their number one thing. And the second thing, the other one is Apple. And Apple, they're about iPhones. So this whole TV business on this is a side gig. Side gig. So that's what breaks it. John Landgraf at Effects was saying that for years, and it's true. And and then you take the sort of like the switch and bait that happened with the streamers, which was, we're going to give you all this money, we're going to create massive deals, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then gradually, when they realized that they had to do something to turn it into a business, then it was like, okay, now we're going to bring in commercials. Now we're not going to give you creative control. Now we're going to come up. And now the restrictions for working for streamers are just as much as restrictions as working for network. There's no.
Well, it's funny.
It was inevitable, though. It felt like it was inevitable.
Heading that direction anyway.
There's only so much that you can, if you're not making money at a certain point, you have to start to shift.
It's true. I remember when we were on, I was doing Dirt with Courtney Cox, the show I was doing before on The Mentalist, and it was on FX. And I remember, and I can remember this exactly because we had this little catchphrase. Courtney was obviously on Friends, and so therefore they had a massive audience, a massive everything.
That show did all right.
Yeah, that show did all right. And and Courtney's a wonderful human being and a really hard worker. And we did 2 seasons of this show, and we were trying to find our feet. There was a show about paparazzi based on an incident that happened to her, where she got sort of hounded by the paparazzi with Coco, her daughter. And when her and her assistant got out of a mall and were like trapped, and people were jumping on the car and stuff like that, when they finally drove away, they got the traffic light, they both went, "Is there a TV series in that?" And they developed a series about paparazzi and everything else. Yeah. But anyway, so that show was a $3 million budget at the time, and our viewership was 3 million.
Wow.
And we do the $1 a viewer dance around the stage.
Right.
$1 a viewer. $1 a viewer. And that's how I remember what the viewership was.
Yeah.
We had.
That's not a bad customer acquisition cost.
58.1
million. Right.
Yeah. $3 a viewer.
Yeah.
And then it became I did Man in the High Castle for Amazon.
Sure.
Where that thing had like a sort of a $10, $15 million budget per episode, depending on the kind of episode. And that turned into like about $150 a viewer because they had no viewers.
Well, and that was like one of the Amazon's
first shows.
I have a friend that did that show, and I remember it was.
I had a mate on that show too. Yeah,
it was a good show.
Burn Gorman. Do you know Burn?
No.
Yeah, he was great.
Rufus was on that show.
Oh, that's right. He was. Yeah.
It was a great show, and creatively, I am saying nothing but great things about that show. It was an amazing show. It really worked, but it was about $150 a viewer.
Apples and oranges, though. Do you know what I mean? In terms of what it.
Yeah,
and it's
apples
interesting.
and
I
oranges.
had exactly the same experience when I went from The Mentalist to Turn Washington Spies.
Yeah.
Turn Washington Spies, incredible project, but obviously now we're on AMC. We're not on a network, and the expectation level. And I remember when those first numbers came in for our first few episodes, and they were like 750,000 people watching. I was like, oh my God, we're done. They were like, are you kidding me?
Happy.
This is the greatest thing ever. And I was like, oh, okay, so different.
It is great. Yeah.
Different places, different sort of expectations.
Thank God we did it.
We did it. And I was like, yeah, when I meant, oh no, it's great. That's what I meant. So you sort of, it was interesting hearing you talk earlier about the prestige factor of cable television as well. And I guess a little bit of snobbery. I remember certainly when I first came in, I'd done a project on HBO called Generation Kill with with the guys who did The Wire, obviously David Simon and Ed, and those were the gigs you did for the prestige,
Not for the money.
because they didn't pay you. You know,
Didn't pay, no.
and it's funny because I think people look at HBO and all of these sort of, you know, edgier cable networks, and they're like, whoa, you know, this is where all the movie stars are going. And I'm like, yeah, because the movie stars can afford to,
Right.
you know, because that's where they're going to get the award garnering. You know,
Right.
you've done a fair share of, because you jumped onto a cable show, Colony, right? After,
Yeah, and that was USA. I bet it's like my career has been plagued by like changing of regimes at every network. Like I went through it when I first started out Fox. I had like pilots that I did that, you know, the executives were really behind and loved and wanted to get on the air, and then their contracts were up and a new regime would come in and they wanted to start fresh. So it was like I found myself caught in a lot of that. And Colony actually was a little bit of that. Like we had some executives that were really champions of the show, and when their contracts were up, it was like because the budget was so tricky and we weren't getting the incentives that California was offering. So they ended up having to move it to Vancouver, and it was like it just didn't have the executives behind it that it
The
did in
support
the
that it
first
needed.
season.
Yeah.
And so without that support, like it just sort of fell by the wayside. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But it's like when the new executives come in, you can't really like they're just trying to do cleanup work from what is
Or
left
they
over
don't
from
want
the one
to. They
before.
want
So
to make
it's
their
not
own
their,
mark.
they
so
want to
they
make their own
abandon what
thing.
came
So
before them. Yeah.
it becomes a whole different deal.
Yeah.
You know. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because that sort of brought me organically to my next question, which was, what are the challenges today versus, has it got easier or harder to make television? Because we've got more money now, we've got more eyeballs, but there seems to be new challenges as well.
Yeah, I think it's harder. I think it's harder because I think there's a lack of trust in the storytellers and filmmakers.
Sure.
And I think that everyone's chasing what was.
Right.
Nobody's you know going to take a chance. Like in the old days of like take NBC. Look at the shows that NBC had on in the old days, like West Wing, and ER, and you know Sports Night. Like loads of great shows NBC had on. And so did ABC and CBS. Lost, and they broke ground. And I think that they broke ground because they gave a certain amount of creative freedom to the people, the showrunners that came in, and the vision of what the show is, and when they would give it a chance, and then they cancel it. It didn't work. They weren't shy in canceling you. But I think now a lot of it is done by committee. So
that's why we have so many
the
reboots
model is
coming in.
different,
And,
too. The pilot model doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist. No.
You know, it was a completely different model, and they would take a chance, and then it would. I mean, look at Seinfeld was a total dud.
Right.
Comparatively to what we were dealing with when we were first put on the air, in terms of like numbers and what they were garnering in that first season, but they gave it a chance, and then eventually it picked up an audience. But
pilots did give kooky ideas a chance to let's see it in real time. And if it works, great. And it takes off. If it doesn't, we're not making it. Yeah, but we don't have that.
It was a very small thing. Now it's like order 8 episodes or 10 episodes. Also, the business model of how Warner Brothers would make a show would be, you know, Warner Brothers would make a show as a studio. They get it licensed by CBS. So CBS never owned it, which is the reason that they came up with shows like Elementary. So they could own them, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. So they would lease the show, and then the aftermarket of The Mentalist, like the foreign sales and everything else, any aftermarket. You don't blame them. Like CBC, CBS weren't shy about it. I mean, it was like it came out of Elementary to try and counter program against The Mentalist, and they moved Mentalist to a less desirable time spot and put Elementary in the desirable time slot to try and boost it because they owned it.
I had the most meta Elementary experience. So I was on their 100th episode, and the director was John Paulson.
No,
so it was hilarious. He was like, when I saw you, you're in, and it's like, hello, mate. I was like, hello. So, but it was for all intents and, I mean, think about, and I'm not going to say that we necessarily spawned these shows, but we definitely preceded them. You know, Castle, Elementary is another, Lie to Me, which was very short-lived.
And there's one there's one which I'm here to put a nail in this rumor.
Okay.
There was a USA show called Psych.
Yes.
That was out at the time, and every single Psych fan and a lot of the people that worked on that show said that that we stole their idea, and we never saw the show. Me and Bruno, I'm here to tell you,
Right.
Psych fans, we never saw your show. It was like
you heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
But I think that's when you know you are occupying a certain space in
Yeah.
pop culture, you know, because I'm looking at the icon behind you, the Red John smiley face. Now,
There it is.
iconography has become so synonymous with the Mentalist, this Red John smiley face. Are you familiar with the smiley face killer?
No.
Okay, so the smiley face killer was supposedly a serial killer that I believe was based in and around San Francisco, right? And series of young men who were drowned in very unfortunate circumstances. I believe there was some sort of like cutting or ligature or something involved, and then there was always a smiley face put at the crime scene.
What years was this?
This was immediately preceding The Mentalist. And I'd wondered, in fact, if it had been any kind of creative launchpad for Bruno, because it's very squarely Red John smiley face, you know.
Okay.
It's particularly haunting because you usually associate that, something like, obviously not in blood, but, you know, as being a
Happy
smiley
thing.
face, happy emoji. So there was something about the disruption of that, but it ended up being one of those true crime things that they were never really entirely sure whether it was a real serial killer or whether it was sort of media invented myth. But I had wondered if that had informed any of our serial killers.
Okay, well, this is interesting because I didn't know if I was going to bring this up or not, but around episode, and this might speak to your timeline a little bit.
Okay.
Owen, around episode 5 or 6, we got called to Peter Roth's office, and we thought, me and Bruno were going up there, and we thought we'd just gone out for a few attaboys, and so we sort of skipped up there. And when we got there, the FBI were there.
Shut up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they sat us down, and they said that there had been this smiley face killer or whatever, and they didn't refer to this person as that. And they were showing this to us because the similarity of this is, you know, absolutely a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And if there was anybody's ever going to reach out to us, or if we felt something, or if we'd received emails, or if we'd like done something. So we were like rocked by it, absolutely rocked by it. So I'm not really sure about the timeline of all this. Certainly, you know, we weren't aware of like any of it, the tragedy of any of that. And
what was their sort of take? Just, can you ease off the storyline?
No, their take wasn't that.
They just want to make you aware.
They wanted to make us aware in case there was something that we, in our background, that we had, you know,
where were you on the night of?
Yeah, exactly. Look, if there was any emails, or if anybody reached out to us, or if there's any strange activity, or if there's any, just to put it on our radar.
Communication, essentially.
Communication,
like
essentially.
was communicating with
No. I mean, but it rocked us. It really rocked us because, you know, you walk away and you think, look, the person that has that kind of mind is going to do that kind of thing anyway. But you realize when you have such enormous access and you're telling enormous stories that, you know, to do something like, to see something like that, it is, which might have a reference to our show, is it rocked us. It really rocked me and Bruno
Well, it's really interesting because how familiar were you with police procedure? Yeah, we're both Brits, obviously.
Yeah.
Policing in the UK is very different to policing in the US. Was this a world that was familiar to you?
Yeah, my exposure to it was basically through working in crime shows.
Okay,
I did without trace, and I did. So I was very, very au fait with the way that, you know, it worked. You know, and the differences between the way that we would do a police show in the UK and we do a police show here. I always got confused by if it was sheriff or
officer
CAD or like, you know,
agent
I always got confused by that, and how many different agencies there are.
Sure.
LAPD, the sheriff. I was always like,
I'm sure there's an eye opener also consulting with Carl Sonnenberg, right?
Yes.
I'm sure he was a fountain of knowledge as far as how the procedural aspect of it went.
Yeah, we wouldn't do anything without Carl.
Yeah.
You know, we try to run everything by Carl, and you know, and it was true what he said. He would come up with great things, or he would try to make it work for story. It's like, okay, I know this is awkward, but we got to find a way to get this bit over here.
Right.
So we have to put that a little bit on the back burner and just take a little bit of artistic license with something. But yeah, so I would say, I know that's weird. Yeah, by my background of like police procedural, like I did a show called Turks, which was an Irish American cop drama, which suffered the same fate. Basically, it did like 12 episodes. It wasn't owned by CBS. CBS cancelled it and then came up with Blue Bloods, which was an Irish American drama.
See, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
But it was a great show. So, and I did, and that was set in Chicago, and I did a bunch of ride-alongs with the guys in Chicago. Blew my mind. I had so much respect for them. I went out with them on I did a Saturday night shift, and what they went through in one night.
Yeah.
I
did for the Mentalist. I did a ride along with LA County Sheriffs, and I did a Ghetto Bird fly along in a Ghetto Bird with LAPD. Yeah. And so was flying all over like that Citibank building, and just all these different Dodger Stadium. We flew over, and it was great.
I got the more authentic cop experience. I went to Dunkin' Donuts.
Perfect. You got some donuts and coffee. Yeah.
We got some coffee and some donuts. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. You know,
Rigsby, done. And character work done.
That would cover season 1 Rigsby.
And I think people are incredibly quick to judge.
Yeah.
You know what happens with the police, but they don't understand really anything of how sensitive it can be or how sensitive it is.
Yeah. Also,
that goes into the rules that we talked about, right? As far as what law enforcement has to deal with in terms of the handcuffs, that, no pun intended, that they have when they're trying to.
100%. It's interesting. It's been a recurrent theme for us talking about the sort of the rigidity of the police procedure versus the freedom of someone like Jane, who can just go out on a whim and a hunch. Yeah. And what's interesting about the show is the amount that we allow him to enfranchise that.
Yes.
You know, because at the start, you know, this is where I think that maybe fiction and fact begin to divert a little bit, because the amount of agency he's given. Look, I get it. At the start, he's this sort of, you know, forlorn victim that we don't really know quite what to do with. He's a guy who just won't go away, and he's been, you know, just the victim of the worst possible crime and the hugest possible loss. But after a while, week over week, and going back as an audience member, it's been fascinating because he gets away with murder.
Right.
And not only that, but the willingness that we have to take a state agency and just go,
he closes cases.
Don't worry.
Yeah. He closes them. Yeah. Well, that's some good TV license.
I'm going to do one. Yes. I want to get into that.
Oh, sure, get in there. Yeah, we want to prove that we're all
in the same room.
Yeah.
We should go.
There we go.
Hold the other trophy. Look at that.
Rogues Gallery.
You hold that one.
Yeah, there we go.
Look at that thing.
And you go. There we go.
Where's the other one? I think you're sitting on it.
Sitting on it.
There we go. How was that? How was
Careful, dust off that golden nymph. He's just been sat on it.
Get in.
What is this
from?
from?
There we go. That's the golden nymph.
That's from Monte Carlo.
Go and get in here real quick.
Read the bomb on that.
Get in here.
I'm going to get in.
Just come over the top. So these are all our awards.
Wow.
There we go.
Here we are.
I'll hold this up here.
Yay! So we brought you to the Mentalist, and we found out the journey there. So now you're doing the gig. Obviously, the pilot's been shot.
Yep.
The cast has been established.
Yep.
So give us a brief little intro into the role of the executive producer. You know, when you're starting on a show like this, what does that look like?
Yeah. You know, it can look different depending on who you're working with and for and everything else. But for me and Bruno, it sort of turned into Bruno basically looked after the writing and ran the show from the writer's room. I would sort of like put together a lot of the way the production went together, choosing of the DP and the look of the show and the production designers and the design of the show. And then Bruno and I would meet back in post and we'd cut the shows together by the time the director had done his cut and stuff like that. So it's sort of like, you know, the best way to describe those sort of jobs is like you're kind of like a CEO of something. It's like there's a lot of people. People don't realize that there's 250 people that work on the Mentalist, and that we're working on 6 shows at the same time.
Wow.
6 shows because, you know, there's one in, you know, story, pre-production, post-production, the finishing stages of post-production, you know, 2 of them are in sort of offline editorial. So you're working on 6 shows. People always say, why it takes so many producers to produce a movie TV show? Well, because we're working on 6 of them at the same time when you're doing something that is the locomotive of, and something's always slipping through the cracks.
Right.
And so You're basically the sort of like the CEO of production, if you want, working extremely closely with like Charlie, who's like the money producer in the first year. And when he left, it was Matthew.
Right.
So they're completely in partnership with you, but they're very much involved with, how to keep costs in line and how to keep a handle on that stuff. And then my job is particularly the pivot between the money, sort of the creative
And the creative.
the Bruno, and how to translate it and get it all on camera and get it all done on time.
We want this.
then-
We can't afford this.
Right.
You can have this.
Yeah.
Geary brought up a funny story about some cost saving methods that as far as bringing in huge camera packages, because he wasn't allowed any pre-production.
Yeah. I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, so he was like, I need
Yeah.
every lens you have. I need everything you've got.
Yeah.
And then when he was afforded that pre-production, that camera package just shrank, and so did the cost.
And also the hours went down, because if
Right.
you remember, we worked an enormous amount of hours.
Yeah.
Because there was the amount of everything's in the prep, right?
Yeah.
Everything you know this as actors, right? You
Yeah.
come, everything's in the prep. You've already got a handle on your scene. You've learned the lines. You have a take on the scene.
The shooting of it goes pretty
the
quick.
shooting goes pretty fast.
Yeah.
So
It's a
everyone,
setup.
Yeah.
everyone has to come in with a base point. And if the poor old DP, if she or she hasn't had a look at what the set even looks
Right.
like or where they're going, it's
Yeah.
like, how can
It takes a minute.
Yeah.
to sort
It
all
takes
that
a
out.
minute. So there's a million conversations that happen between the prepping director and the director of photography to find out exactly where we're going to be shooting, why we're going to be shooting it this way, and then all the tone meetings and the creative meetings that the DP gets to listen in on, so that he understands exactly what episode we're trying to make, as opposed to just catching up on the day with just shooting pages. Because basically, that's not the way to do it.
Right.
The way to do it is the way we do it now, and that's try to get the shooting process as smooth as possible. Now, you guys all know this. When you start a show, that's the discovery moment. So everything's going to take longer.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, does this work? Does that work? Are we setting the lighting patterns for this? Or how's this character development going? And then once you get into the rhythm of what we can and can't do, by the time it got to season 3 or 4, you could just sort of look at one of these scripts and put them in your hand and go, this episode is going to be extremely far too much for us production wise,
Right.
or it's not, or it's like it's in the ballpark. And, that was, the way we
That's really interesting, because I would imagine now it doesn't work that way, especially if you're only doing 8 or 10 episodes in a season.
Yeah.
And you don't know, obviously, if it's going to go past that one season, but you don't have the real estate really to figure that out like
No, you don't.
you used to be able to. I mean, we used to do 24 episodes a season, which is
It's
like
mind blowing when you think
mind
about it.
blowing when you
Yeah.
think about how
Yeah,
production
just
values they were
talking
getting.
about it.
It's
Yeah.
really
It's
insane.
insane.
Right.
And now, like, you're lucky if you get 8 episodes.
Yeah, it's
Well, you know
true.
what's
Show.
funny? I actually remember having a conversation with Tim about this on set, and we were talking about The Office, the British Office,
Yeah.
and I said, oh God, I love the fact that in America, you don't do the 6-episode
Yeah.
model; it's 24, because who's going to say no to 24 paychecks versus 6?
Right,
exactly.
Did you and Bruno have a sort of an unspoken rule that he was going to occupy the writing lane, or it was just obvious that this was where your skill set was, this is
It
where
was
his
sort
skill set was?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons that David wanted to introduce me to Bruno, and then Peter
You guys
Roth.
complemented each other really
Yeah, Peter Roth
perfectly.
wanted
Yeah.
to bring me in too, because I'd done a whole bunch of shows in that sort of position for Peter before. So I think that they thought we'd make a good pairing,
Yeah.
because Bruno had done Rome before, but he hadn't done and that was massive and a completely different kettle of fish than making 24 episodes a season, where you're just playing catch up the entire time with 24 episodes a season, and you frankly you hope that 15, 18 of them are going to be great. There's always going to be a couple that slip through the cracks. They're just going to get away from you. It's just the nature of what it is. But when you're doing 24 a season, you'll get through it with your audience. Your audience you'll gain a trust with your audience, and they'll forgive.
They'll forgive you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
they will. They really will. And that's the sort of thing that allows in a 22, 24 episode season is to build something and see how the relationships work, see how you guys as actors work together,
Right.
to see how it plays out. Oh, this is not really working. That's working. To see who is to see which parts of the components, both on and off screen, are creatively, really working.
I had a couple questions on that. Did you, in the beginning of and starting with the pilot, David kind of set up the mentalizing aspect of it,
Yes.
meaning a POV look at all the clues, quote unquote, that Patrick Jane is looking at. I remember in episodes 2, 3, 4, we kind of followed that model a little bit, but then it started to fall away. Is that something that was consciously decided to where we're not going to make a meal out of the mentalizing? Certainly there continued to be POV shots of whatever Jane's looking at, but we're not purposefully making it he's mentalizing now kind of a POV. Was that
definitely
was on purpose or
on purpose? Yeah, because once you've told the audience the rules,
then
they understand
then it doesn't
so
matter.
therefore you don't see. In fact, I just recently read an NBC pilot that's shooting this year. They're actually shooting a few pilots this year called Puzzled, and it's the script is very derivative of many things we used to make in the old days, and one of them is that he has these sort of moments where he's
picking up clues,
and they've written it like it's in his head and it's a whatever sequence, and that's going to work once or twice, and you'll be bored to death with it.
right.
Because nobody wants to sit and watch it. And that was the thing when we did the Mentalist. It was like, hey, should we do something where we like slow-mo down, or we do something just to tell the audience
tag this, tag that?
We don't need to. They don't need to, because the audience knows if Jane's in the room, he's doing it. He's doing it because we told them that. Yeah. So that's why that went away.
I always joke that Jane would have been screwed without a photo wall.
Yes.
The initial few episodes were all like, okay, I'll have a tag of this, look at this. It was the uncle,
We had a good photo wall in this episode.
Well, that's what I loved. And I was going to actually reference that when he goes back into the girls' room.
I know, Greg.
It was, who?
Greg.
Itzen.
Oh,
wow.
Greg.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Seeing him with the
What about that moment in it where he says to you,
so that's a great idea.
Great
idea.
I
know it's a great idea. Or whatever he says.
I know it is. It was such an unmanly moment.
It was great.
It was such a weird moment.
Was that improvised? It must have been.
Well, that's what I
It
thought.
must have been.
I mean, that's what I
I don't
thought.
even remember.
Because it didn't
I know.
work.
But they left it in.
It wasn't Greg's fault.
Right.
It wasn't your fault. It was just it didn't work. It was just like I'm like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
If it was an ad lib, why did we leave it in? If it wasn't an ad lib, why did we leave it in? We should have ended this shot on her. And how good was Alicia Witt in this episode?
So good.
fantastic.
Come on.
And you know what that
Contacts in this
Yeah,
episode?
contacts.
There was like
We put
contacts.
we put contacts in her eyes so she couldn't see.
Oh, she really couldn't
She really couldn't see.
okay.
Well, let's just say she had extremely limited vision.
Yeah.
It knocked it down by about 70%. So she could
She
kind
was
of.
fantastic.
But what was interesting was that, so I have a very dear friend who's been blind for many, many years, and he actually moves with surprising purpose and knows exactly where everything is in his house. And I thought that attention to detail from Alicia was amazing. Because when you see her running, she knows exactly where the door is. But you didn't for a second think, oh, that's her just being able to see it.
Right.
It was obviously imprinted on her physically.
It was like it was written for her because, I mean, she had red hair.
Yeah.
She does have red hair. She's an unbelievable concert pianist.
She is. I was reminded, actually, Chris, of something that you said to me about the power of the guest actor.
Right.
And how if you have a squeaky wheel as a guest actor,
it'll make or break.
It disrupts the whole episode. And then it doesn't matter how good the core cast is. If your guest protagonist isn't bringing it, you've got problems. To the counterpoint of that, we had some rock solid guests in this episode. I'm thinking of Sheriff Hardy. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And Alicia.
He was great, that guy.
He was great.
Perfect too, because in the beginning, I never even, I didn't even
not for a second
understand for a second that he was the guy.
It's so funny. I forgot
and he flips it,
he was. And then I was watching the episode and I was like, wait a minute, isn't he? It was the gum, though. The gum. I was like,
it makes him completely.
You're such a scumbag.
Yeah.
You're like, no,
there was just too much gum.
There was too much gum, and also unfortunately, this obviously, years on, you cringe at certain moments. Like his very first line was cringeworthy. His very first line was, "Wow, this gum tastes like rubber or something." And then the scene started. And I'm like, A, who speaks to themselves, and B, and it felt to me. Probably what happened was we were addressing a network note.
Yeah.
At script level, when somebody hadn't read this, when somebody hadn't seen the footage, where they go, well, how are you going to know? Well, because the guy's bloody chewing in every shot, so that's how you're going to know. And it's nicotine gum. You're going to put it together, but that's the sort of thing where you go, 15 years later, or how long ago is he's like, oh no, that's a bit of a cringeworthy moment. I wish we hadn't done that.
Right.
But hey, that's what happens. You're trying to, we were probably trying to address some note from somebody about something, and we're still in our first season, so we had a very, very good relationship with our creative execs. And we were one of those kind of people that shut everybody's notes down or shut them down, or there's a lot of because the power at that point had sort of flipped to us because the show was so successful, and we knew it was going to be running for 5 or 6 years. We knew that. I mean, the foreign sales were so huge on it. They're so huge on it. All we had to do was turn the camera on Monday morning to be making millions of dollars an episode.
Right.
Well, and then they started to trust you. So it was like,
they trust you. Yeah, exactly. And so therefore, but we never. But there's maybe a few things. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just me and Bruno going, "Oh, let's jam that in." I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking today.
So on that creative note, real quick, Chris, how did you go about? Did you have a different mindset between the episodes that, and given that this is our first season, but the episodes that you directed throughout the season versus this finale? Was there a different weight on the finale and directing it? Certainly, right?
Yeah, I think.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. And that, I think there is in every TV series too, to be honest. I think that the finale has always got to be something special. That you've got to, and I've always found actually the season openers to be the most boring. Where you just sort of like, you got to pull it all back. Yeah, you got to pull it all back again. Yeah, basically, and you got to reset the clock on everything. Whereas getting towards the end of the finale with the whole Red John thing, we knew how close we were going to get. Were
you digging deep for the creative aspect of it, or I want shots coming out this and that? Yeah,
very much so. And the Red John episodes have a slightly different look to them; they're darker in tone. Right. Obviously we're always out in the California sunlight, so when we're out in the sunlight, we're always playing that California, beautiful rays of light, but it had a darker tone to it.
That reveal with the smiley face in the bedroom, that was chilling.
It was. So
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And the look on Simon's face, I was great. Like, wow, that was amazing.
It was great to reveal his face first before you reveal the thing. That was really good. There's a shot in that I don't like when I go through the wall. I shouldn't have done that.
I remember that. Yeah. What didn't you like about that?
Well, it breaks the audience's trust, I think.
Okay.
I think that I think that
I mean, I saw it. Like, I noticed that shot.
Well, yeah. Then you believe
probably why. You don't want us to
then you're aware.
You're aware
that you're watching.
You're aware. And if I had to go back and do it again, I would have cut that shot out. It's a shot that you get an idea during the prep week. Wouldn't it be great to see them both in the frame, to see her against the wall and him, whatever, without revealing the smiley face? And it's one of those things that you try and you get and you do it, and then you put these things together and you put them out in the ether, and there they are. 15 years later, haunting you.
Well,
I never watch anything I've directed.
I think the good news is that most people were probably looking at the copious amounts of hair gel in my hair.
They were.
So
there's a lot of gel,
and I look back, and at the time, I remember you very graciously, several seasons later, taking me aside as a good friend and saying, "You, Chris, not you, Amanda. You just ridiculed me, Amanda. Listen, there's been some concern about your hair. Just wondering if it's going to get any taller. Maybe we could cut." I'm like, "Whatever you need, mate." But it's so funny because there is.
Remember the guest star, the halitosis guy?
The halitosis? Who's that?
His guest star.
I don't.
There's his guest star. We were talking about guest stars on Alicia Witt and how the squeaky wheel and all that.
Sure.
There was this one guy, and he had the worst halitosis.
Oh, no.
And both Simon was trying to act, and then he literally was like, "Logie, you got to do something." I go, "What can I do about the guy's got halitosis?" It's like, I can
hand him a breath mint.
Yeah,
something.
we did. I mean, he goes,
"No, I'm all right."
Yeah.
So
no, I'm good. I don't need any. Yeah.
So hair and makeup gave him a breath mint.
There you go.
And I go, "Was that better, Baker?" And he goes, "No, mate." He was like, it was the most heinous.
No.
Tiny bit of mint.
Yeah, a little bit of mint added to it. Guys, if you put mint on a poo, it's still a minty poo,
And then when he saw the episode, Baker's acting like, like all his reactions are like this.
Oh my God.
Losing it because the guy was just like so close to it. Back it up.
Different blocking
It's like, what the fuck are you saying?
All the way across the room.
I feel like Patrick Jane would
Oh.
stand for this season.
Yeah.
Outside is where he would stand. Oh my
So
god.
I feel like this is a good opportunity for us to segue into the episode and to chat briefly about that, because I feel like we've arrived perfectly at that moment.
With halitosis guy, that's what that's the perfect arrival to the
I'm-
episode.
By the time we've got to episode 23, we already know we're picked up, right?
Yep.
So we were trying to figure out when that was, because that's a great luxury too, and something that audiences don't understand is that the challenge, I guess, for you guys, for us always, is how long do these storylines get teased for?
Yeah.
Because at any given moment in television, that's it. That's your last season. Wrap it up. So I'm assuming we probably found out around episode
21, 20, something like it was.
Well, that was the sort of
It would've
official
been-
pickup.
right.
Yeah, because it would have been like April, beginning of April, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the sort of official pickup. But the story I said about, Peter Roth telling us, what's going to be the rate of attrition for the episodes, but it didn't. It went up and up and up and up and up and up. And then we went to a meeting in his office, and he said, "You guys have got 5 years."
Oh wow.
He
Okay.
said, because it's so popular, we've sold it for so much money.
Right.
In foreign, because again, CBS only leased the show, that they sold that we could basically find a platform for it anywhere.
And they knew that
So-
early on.
Yeah.
So it was
Very
that
well.
early on, but we were still waiting with bated breath every season, just in case. Is that what it was?
No,
I mean, I'm talking about from the actor's point of view.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
still,
No, the actors had to wait. at
yeah.
bated
I mean,
breath
nothing is for
because
sure
people
until it's for
fired at any
sure.
moment.
Nothing is
Even-
for sure,
You know
right.
what I mean?
No, nothing's
But you knew.
Well, we
ahead
knew,
of time.
but there's always a chance. But we didn't want to say to everybody, we're picked up for 5 years.
Correct.
course.
Right.
So, because
Because then you'd be the bad guy if you
Yeah,
get
if,
Yeah,
if
and
it's
then
for
you
some
go-
reason.
hey, by the
Wish
way,
you had
you
it,
guys
it'd
all
be
went
better
out
than
and
my
bought
yeah,
it.
right. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? Is that right,
So we
right.
didn't have much pressure on us,
Sure.
especially for the end of the season that we knew.
Yeah.
We knew that we were going to get picked up for the next year.
Did that lead to a little more risk taking?
Yeah.
Did that lead to sort of, because, network TV, to give some context for our viewers, it is considered generally the safer place
Yeah.
in television, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a mass audience.
Yeah.
You can't take the same risks, use the same cuss words. And so there's this sort of, going back to my earlier point about cable being, I don't know, prestige or more real, there is sometimes a feeling that network shows are a little bit too fakely sort of blue sky, right, or a little bit sort of live in a slightly elevated and slightly too true reality. What I loved about our show was that we vacillated between two versions of that, a very dark world that was very grim, and I still believed it. Yes, it didn't have the grit of The Wire, but it would have felt ridiculous being that. We've talked to a lot of people about what a reboot of the show might look like in 2026. What do you think might have to change? What do you think would work? Do you think there's a version of this show that works in 2026?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think for sure, especially because we're going through some sort of like tough times in this country. So therefore, I think people would want to see a version of this. But I will say, but just wind it back slightly, which will lead into this. As you asked me earlier about, did we know who sort of Red John was from the very beginning? There was a conversation that we had where we were thinking about making Simon Red John.
Well, I wondered about that.
Yeah.
And I think a few people thought that.
Yeah. And,
How seriously was that conversation
well,
taken?
the conversation really was kiboshed. In the end, we thought about it, and then we went to Simon about it, and Simon was into it. And then we went to the studio about it, and they said, no way.
Right.
They said, you will kill the syndication. Like, you will absolutely.
So funny though, because look at what Last of Us did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nina talked
and
about
they
it.
lost me. I mean, I as an audience member now, I'm like, but that's the hero. Like, I mean, that's why, and so I get it. Like,
But also, how
it's a
great,
risk.
how
It's
great and unexpected.
it would have
It
been
would be.
completely, but it's such a
But it's
risk.
a betrayal.
Yeah, it is.
It's
such a betrayal.
because you build trust with the audience.
Yeah.
Well,
To
also
bring
it's-
them in.
5
I mean,
seasons of him being fake, that would have meant.
Well,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and
Right.
it does skew the whole.
Excuse the whole thing.
the
And
thing,
whole
yeah.
thing, it becomes a completely different show.
yeah, the studio were like, literally, Walter and Peter was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely 100% not. That's not going to happen because this, and he went through all the reasons why, and a lot of it, yes, is commercially driven.
Did you come to agree with that?
Yeah.
You
I
agree
mean,
with-
it was about, because you do think like,
I mean, from a storytelling point of view, not
Well,
an
from a storytelling-
economic point of view. But
yeah, well, it is 6 years of betrayal.
Yeah.
You know, it is like 6 years of
That's quite a bit.
yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And yet,
people were-
if the show had been on cable, it would have
It
been
would've
the
done it.
ultimate
It would have done it.
bait and switch.
It would've,
It would have been the ultimate kind of like
sure.
snafu at the end, where you were like, "Wow, the reads between the lies guy is the ultimate liar."
Yeah.
You know, that would have been
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think, really
No,
interesting.
it would have been
But
amazing.
to your
but-
point, I think there is a trust that you build with an
Yeah.
audience, and especially with a beloved piece of IP, which obviously The Mentalist became. I remember you might not remember this, but I had a conversation with you about when Rigsby got shot, and that was the episode where we left the show. And I remember saying to you, "Can I die? You know, I'd love to go out in a bit of a blaze of
Yeah, I
glory."
remember that.
And you said to me, you were like, "Honestly, mate, we just can't do that because the characters are too
That's not what
beloved.
this.
And
That's
if
not
we
what the
killed
show
you
is.
off
Yeah.
now on this show, it would just
We'd
would
lose
sour
everything.
things,
Yeah.
you know. And
Well,
I get it now. I
And
totally
I
get
think
it.
also to just carry on to that point, like when you build that kind of a trust with an audience, and then suddenly say Jane becomes Red John, or
Yeah.
they kill you off, like
Yeah.
the longevity that it has now, like after all these years, the audience that still goes back, like I don't know that it would
You know
have
the
that
punchline.
same impact.
Yeah, you know the punchline
Because
if that's the
exactly,
case,
but
right?
like part of the journey is learning who Red John is, right? And
Yeah.
it's like I think that if the audience's trust is destroyed to a degree with having Jane be Red John, I don't think it has the same longevity after the show is ended.
doesn't,
I don't
no.
think as
But
many
we did-
people
we did
go
fl- we did
and go,
flirt
you know
with it,
what?
though.
I've heard that's a great show. I'm going to check it
Sure.
out.
It feels,
Like,
you know what? In some ways,
I
it
think
feels.
it loses
Wait for
that.
I agree.
season 7, you'll hate what happens.
I agree.
That's-
But it feels slightly gimmicky at
Yeah.
that point,
It feels
right?
gimmicky.
There
It
is
felt-
that
yeah,
part.
it felt it is. I mean, also, I did a miniseries fairly recently with Steve Carell, which was 8 episodes on FX, and we killed him in the end of it. And it was like we killed Steve Carell, like the amount of people that were angry.
Yeah.
That you know, it was like we actually physically killed Steve Carell. No, we just killed his character.
Right.
So people get, you know, very attached to people. I mean, I think that's one difference between movies and TV. You know, TV characters are invited into your living room.
That's
Yeah.
right. You
Part of the
spend
furniture.
Once a
every
week.
week with them.
Yeah. And there's a comfort to them. So to your question, is there a place for a show like The Mentalist? Absolutely, there is. Absolutely, I think it would be really successful if it was.
And what do you think might need to change? Would there need to be a tonal shift? It's interesting. We put the same question to Erica Green, and she Swafford, and she said, "You know what I would have loved to have explored as a writer is a little bit of a wider world. Like, who were the nemesis of Rigsby and Cho at the water cooler?
Right.
Who were the people
Like
that
two partners that we battle with at the
CBI
CBI.
Ron,
you know?
CBI Carl.
Yeah, we hate these
right.
guys. Or
Bizarro,
whatever.
Cho, and Rigsby. Yeah, exactly. But also that kind of sense of it. As we've watched the show, we've realised we don't spend an awful lot of time outside of the CBI. You don't really dive
Going
into
home
people's
with them,
private
like, to their
lives.
apartment
No.
or whatever.
Was that a
and-
conscious decision?
Yeah, that's a conscious decision because in a show that's structured in our way, that's a lot of real estate you have to give. We did it with Lisbon in one episode. Remember?
Yes, I remember.
Which was very successful.
Yeah.
But it's a sort of, but if you were to reboot it now, I think people would want a lot more of the relationship stuff. So I think you would spend more time going home with the characters.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your one-word remembrance. Do you have one for the episode?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to show us what it is?
Yes.
What is
A
that?
relationship.
Relationships.
Okay. Unpack
What's
that, please.
what's that?
And back. That is to do with the relationship between obviously Rosalind Pike. Is that her name?
Harker.
Harker.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rosalind Harker.
Alicia Witt
Yes.
and Red John.
Yeah.
Patrick Jane and Red John. And the one really unrealized relationship, which is Cho and the niece. That's what
That's a stretch, but I'm going to allow it. the
I mean,
non-existent relationship.
Erica would have written a whole episode on
Yeah,
that.
right,
It would have
right.
been you.
That's the one where an ongoing
That's
thing.
the whole
That's the
crux
one
of the
I wanted to
episode,
say.
right?
I
That
wanted
is
to
so funny.
tell them. Because it just cracked me up.
I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, and I'm not going to spoil who Red John becomes for those viewers who we do have a number of viewers who watch our show and are still watching it in real time. But what I loved about the relationships that were being referenced was that there was a real duality because on the surface of it, Red John is obviously a heinous serial killer who has done terrible, terrible things. And now we're presented with a version of this guy who is softly spoken, who is romantic, who is tender. And, you know, and not only that, so my one word was see. And I mean this literally, but also metaphorically, because it's the things that obviously couldn't be seen. But what I loved about the metaphor of the blindness was that there are a lot of people who are blind in this episode, and a lot of people who can see things and can't see things. And I think it's interesting because Jane is still very much in his active grief vengeance mode. And he's still very much in that, when I catch him, you better stay out of my way. And they actually have an argument over it.
Oh,
You know, it really, I think that's one of the first times they actually come to blows in the series.
Lisbon, yeah, she just goes off in a way that I've never seen that happen. I mean, she came in really strong.
Which is interesting because it's staged, obviously.
Right.
But I love the idea that we had literal blindness in this character, but we had an awful lot of metaphorical blindness, things that can be seen, things that can't be seen. And that played out most powerfully for me in that moment that you talked about, where he comes in and you just see Jane's face, and then you see what's behind you right now, the smiley face up there. And it was just so awful to think about. And again, credit to Alicia's performance, to think about this most vulnerable woman who could have at any moment been taken advantage of, injured, killed. And yet he doesn't do that. And so what's interesting now is this, and this leads me in a very long way to my question. Most finales aim for closure, right? This finale expands the mythology, doesn't it?
Chris, you talked about that earlier. Yeah, opens it up.
We for the first time now, we're seeing Red John as a dual personality who might be many things or maybe many people. A sort of sense that he's got friends too, and there's a wider network that's protecting him. That moment at the end when Hardy is on the floor and just laughing in his face.
Yeah.
That's awful, you know?
Yeah.
So was there obviously we've got the assuredness of knowing we're going into another season, right?
Yep.
Was there a really conscious intent in this episode to say, okay, now we're really going to open up the Red John thing? Because up until now, they've been sprinkled in the Red John episodes, haven't they?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it is, to be absolutely honest, the luxury of knowing that you have another season, that you don't have any responsibility to the audience to sort of like come up with a fake wrap up. You know, often when you're sort of on the fence, on the bubble, and you're not sure if you're getting it, you feel this responsibility to the audience to give them something. If it doesn't go to season 2, then
Like
at least
a
they can
halfway
have
closure.
a halfway closure. And you got your toe in and toe out. But this, no, we definitely wanted to expand this mythology further. And
so the doors were thrown open at the end of this one, which is weird. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, weird. And that's the beauty of being on something that is going to go this long.
Yeah,
that has that longevity to it.
I do have to give a little slightly honourable. We talked about some of the comic moments. Comedy mentioned to Sheriff Hardy's partner, Duke or Drake.
Duke,
or something. What's his name?
Duke.
Now, I have to ask Chris: was he a stuntman? This guy?
He was a stuntman.
He was a stuntman because every set piece with this poor partner he was like that. Oh my God, we killed Kenny. No, first of all, he gets sent in for the dog. With the great big carrot. He's got a
big welt on his face. Did you notice?
Did he?
Yeah, he's got a big welt on his face where he got whacked with the wood.
Oh, so then once we sent him with the dog, now he's getting a 2x4. I mean, every single that I was just like, this poor guy. Oh man,
He wasn't the most physical of character either, was he?
Yes, that made sense to me because I did make a note. I was like, wow, he's
been brutalized pretty good. Yeah.
One thing I also thought was really interesting about this episode was it was the first and only time I've ever seen you wear sunglasses. It really sunglasses
that
tend
day,
to be
I don't remember these episodes, but I remember
that day.
That day was so stinking windy.
Was it?
That my eyes wouldn't stop leaking.
All the dust and everything.
It was the airplane situation, right? And we're out there, and it was like a Santa Ana, like crazy, like 60-mile-an-hour winds, right? And sound was like, and I was like, my eyes. And it became like total drama because nobody wanted me to wear sunglasses. Right. But I was like, I was like, I can't keep my eyes open. It's between like the brightness and the wind.
That reminds me of that blooper with Owen trying to put on that little tiny shirt. And it's the same day, super windy, and it's the bloopers on you. You're like, I can't see. Yeah, you've had that happen more than once.
Yeah,
I'm finding it.
That was why the sunglasses. But it was a total last minute thing. But it was
you look great.
I
They're-
think
Yeah,
you're
right. Yeah, you did. But it's
They're
funny.
good caricatures.
It's something that we sort of, given that we are in sunny California,
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to shoot, is it? When you want as a
No,
director,
because you can't
lose
see
the
somebody
eyes.
like I think for this scene A particularly works because she's questioning somebody.
Sure.
So therefore, people are always put on the back foot if you can't see someone's eyes.
Right.
So if the person that's questioning you, you can't see their eyes. You're
You can't read them,
automatically-
and
yeah. So and it's just not a great thing to have like 4 sets of people that all got
Right, all wearing
sunglasses on, because you can't read their
Yeah,
eyes, So and it's all emotes through the eyes, but it's a cliche, but it's actually true.
Well, also you don't often realize, and this is one thing that I remember I struggled with on my very, very first professional job. I was shooting in the desert in Cabo, and it was 100 and something degrees. And then on top of it, to add insult to injury, people bring in light bounce boards to get the light up into your eyes,
your face.
You're like,
right.
so you have those scenes where you're like, okay, just tell me when it's running, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just like try and prop your eyes
Struggling,
open for
Yeah.
you know the
pretty
length
much
of the take.
that
was what was
scene for
happening.
me.
That's so
Yeah.
funny because it jumped out at me. I was like, that's an interesting choice.
Should we go
I
into
just-
other
Totally practical.
one words?
Yeah,
Like,
please.
it's not even a character choice.
I have so much respect for you guys to do
My my one word is very on the nose, but I've been saying this sort of into a few times this season, is that we started with Erica's episode. We're going to bring that back. What was it? Red-handed.
Red-handed, yeah.
Which I thought in the earlier part of the season was a good prototype for what the Mentalist would end up being. There was another episode that I brought up that we were getting even more developed. And
Red
my
Sauce, I think,
Red
right?
Sauce,
Yeah.
yeah. And then mine, this finale, this is an episode of the Mentalist. This is in its sort of finished form and its most advanced form to date of what our show is and what our show has become to our fans. So
I agree.
that's
and we lose the caption the next year, like
right.
the script.
Yeah, that's
next year.
Oh, that's right.
Because that really is a good button point, Tim. Because that's exactly it. If you don't know what the show is by now,
yeah,
you're
it's
never
not for
gonna
you,
know.
maybe. Yeah, right.
It's not for you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great, and that was the last time we ever saw that thing that came up, which we were told to put up. We saw a guy called Darren Brown a lot.
All right.
Yes, Darren's wonderful.
We've
Darren Brown's
referenced
amazing.
him.
Came up. When we were first, very early on episodes, we used to look at a lot of
References stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
Of like tricks that he would do, and he can talk anybody into anything.
Amanda, did you?
Yes.
I know it's not officially your one word remembrance episode.
No,
but did
you know what? I totally missed the mark
It's
because
fine.
I was like, one word, wait, what? It doesn't even sum anything up. But
I know. I like piano.
Piano.
the piano really stood out for me in this episode. There's something so hauntingly beautiful about the cuts between her hands playing and Jane and his contemplative state and his grief, and it's so layered. And the moments where he's vulnerable and angry and thinking, and it was so beautifully put together. And
You're a
I
musician
really,
too. That's why.
and I
right.
I don't know, that was one moment that really stood out to me about this episode.
And ending with the Bach as well, which was
Yeah.
a beautiful way to end it.
And I thought, the sort of the two modes that Simon managed to inhabit for Jane. There was the sort of the nonchalant, didn't care, everything washed off his back, and then the incredibly, and there was almost like this inward look that becomes a signature Patrick Jane look of when he's remembering that trauma. And I think, to your credit, Chris, the ability to just pepper those in where they matter the most. That for me, like we joked about things like the monkey episode, but outside of the monkey episodes, there were plenty of episodes that were just a fun ride. You'd solve the crime of the week, and it was breezy. You check in with the team. It was fun.
That was the last one, right?
Was that the last one?
Yeah.
Red Sauce had a real kind of Thomas Crown about it, and I was like, "This is fun." It's like a con thing, This was just for me,
brings it back.
Yeah, it does, and I think that being able to have that light and that dark, the sort of the tonal shade makes the one better for it,
And Chris, you know how you just talked about, what was it, Lois and Clark, right? You knocked the first one you knocked out of the park, right? Yeah. The second one
doesn't watch.
You knocked this out of the park.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It was a good.
It was phenomenal.
It was good.
Yeah, it was really good.
I especially like with emotionally talking about Jane in this episode, the way that when he's looking up at the sky writing, he's got so many things that he's playing on his face. He's got that sort of like bring it. He's got that sort of bring it moment too.
We didn't have a skywriter on that day.
That was
did we?
what we said.
Now,
was just like, look up, there's a plane.
Well, so yeah,
Spidey mode.
Which sometimes we got the memo, and then there's a hilarious photo of me on the. You remember the episode where the guy falls out of the sky, the parachute guy? So there's a great CBS photo of everyone looking at him on the floor, and I'm like. I clearly got the timing wrong. Or Tim offered me a lifeline and he said, no. What Rigsby's doing is he's checking to see if there's other bodies. I'm like, oh, yeah.
He's looking out for
Yeah,
us.
Police work.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Anytime.
Were you ever concerned with keeping the same villain protagonist? Did you ever worry that there would be Red John fatigue?
No, because I think it's a really good question because it's to do with how many episodes a year that you do spend on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so we try to eke out the mythology episodes without overplaying them.
Right.
And I feel that we got it fairly right. I mean, maybe some seasons there was one too many Red John episodes because they definitely had that sort of, how many times can you have a near miss?
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, you play out that near miss. They get out there, you see the shadow of Red John running away in this episode. And, it's like, how many times can you, because it has to be that near miss until the time. So I don't think we worried too much about it. I think we thought that, to have any more than 3 episodes in 22
was enough.
Was enough.
Yeah.
Was enough. Yeah. I don't think audience wanted any more than that.
Well, especially because it's such a heavy
So
subject
heavy.
matter.
Right.
Yeah.
If you overuse it, then you start to.
It's a different show.
It's a different show.
Different show,
It just
yeah.
becomes
It
a lot
leans
more
into sort of
heavier,
weirdly heavy
and it's-
dextery.
It does. And what's interesting is that the amount of times we've had conversations with entire families who said, oh, we used to love sitting down on a Sunday night. I'm like, you used to love sitting down and watching a show about a serial
But
killer?
I think that's the brilliance of this show.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree. I've
I
said it
really
time and
think
again.
it has those sort of dark, dramatic elements, but it was so well balanced
Mhm.
with the comedic relief and being able to explore, other cases outside of the Red John stuff.
Agreed.
And it's funny too, because even in this episode, it's the heavy, but then we're doing this fiance or
Right,
my
but that's the
my cousin or
So
niece
funny.
or whoever.
And I think
that
that's
gag.
why I think I chose it. It's the dichotomy of it that I think really made the show work so
Mhm.
well.
I
Agreed.
agree with you. And I also think that we never met the victims when they were alive. So we didn't watch horrific crimes.
Exactly.
Right, happening. Right.
And that was one of the things we questioned when we first got our time slot. We're like 10 o'clock. I don't think we really saw it as a 10 o'clock show. We saw it more than 9 o'clock.
9
o'clock
o'clock,
show, yeah.
And then I think that CSI was on before us for the first season. And if you tuned in for like 5 minutes before the Mentalist started, it was all dark and
Yeah,
people
it's
getting
blood and guts and gore.
Yeah, and then you
We were
started
never-
with a guy.
With like really light
Yeah.
music.
Well, it's funny.
As we all flounced in and looked out there.
But it's funny you should say that because one thing that was notable about this episode was that we were confronted with quite a grisly murder, and usually we're very PG-13.
Right.
It's very like there's very seldom blood.
Yeah.
And what I appreciated about the show, and I think a lot of people in the feedback that we've had, is that they appreciated a show that wasn't too graphic, wasn't over-sexualized, and just remained in character. Is the sort of the urban legend that I'd heard along the grapevine from Bruno that The Mentalist was sort of at the end of a long list of things that he'd pitched? Was that a true story? Am I remembering that right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I can't really confirm that, but I think it is a long list of things that he was trying to come up with ideas for.
Sure.
And the Mentalist was just on
It
a
was the
pizza box
last
or
one.
something that,
Yeah,
that he walked in with. Or,
No, when
cocktail
he
napkin.
when he walked in and to pitch it, he had this document that
ready to go.
Owen's talking about. And by the way, for all you aspiring writers out there, that document is available online.
Yeah.
If you type and try and find that document, you'll find it. And it is the Iron Chef of how to
It
write,
really
how to
is.
put it together.
Yeah, it really
But I
is.
think he had come up with a couple of different ideas with Warner Brothers, and then Warner Brothers said, no, that's the one. And then they took it to CBS. Bruno is very good in those pitch meetings too, as also to making it seem like he's just coming out with it.
Right.
Because the more, in these pitch meetings, the more natural you can be and the more you can just make it a conversation. I'm just thinking, what do you think about this idea?
Right.
Sure.
It's a deeper conversation than coming in with a
It's an
rehearsed.
easier sell.
Right.
Coming in with
This
a
is
massive rehearsed,
Yeah.
Got it,
thing
yes.
all broken out for like,
Yes.
and you know, you see their eyes rolling back like sharks, and you go, "Don't worry, I've got season 2 and season 3 to get through."
Just wait till
We ain't buying season 1, mate. Don't worry about season 2 and 3. You're good.
Please.
No, I think that, yeah, by the time, I think that's the way that he probably did start, really going to Warner Brothers with 2 or 3 different ideas for CBS, and then probably Melinda and Peter jumped on that idea, and then by the time they got it to CBS, you know, it was really that sort of refined document.
Yeah. What, if anything, looking back, you talked about this briefly.
Yeah.
Would you change as a filmmaker of the show?
It's interesting because it lives in a time, and that's what's, you know, what's sort of like, and so you understand, like I said to you, there's a few cringe moments in there.
Sure.
There's a few moments that perhaps we wouldn't play now because they don't sit in the zeitgeist. They don't sit in a 2026 lens, the way that certain things are. You know, what would I change about it now? I mean, I would just change the few cringy moments that I have. I think, to be honest, it lives in what it is, you know, and you can't really change it. Like, I wouldn't want to change it for what it is. And I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the work. I'm really proud of everything about it.
Yeah.
You know, everybody in it delivered 100%. So there isn't much I ever want to change about it. You know, I mean, I think if I've worked on shows that have been really fun to make, that haven't been, you know, received either critically or whatever. This one hit everything. It was basically quite critically acclaimed. It was fun to make.
Yeah.
And it was of a time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's good about it. I wouldn't want to change it.
Yeah, that's interesting because Geary mentioned something very similar to that. Yeah. In fact, what he said was, "Don't reboot it. Don't remake it. Don't do it. It's of a time.
It's perfect.
It's
for
perfect
what
the way
it
it is.
was
Yeah.
And within space and time.
I think you've often said it best, you know, like you've often said to me, well, if I was talking about changing things, it would connote some sort of regret. And I, like you, feel nothing but pride for what we managed to achieve, because
it's the best thing I've done.
Look at our golden nymph over there.
Let's remind.
56 million people can't be wrong, right? It's
there he is.
It really is. It's, to me, I think you're absolutely right, Tim.
And this beautiful thing, which is
people's choice.
That's people's choice.
That is the most, and I think, you know, to me, that is a.
I know what this bloody thing is.
It's got some heft, huh? If that was in The Mentalist, that would have been a weapon.
Yeah,
I was just about to say that.
Whack somebody up.
Yeah, for certain, sure.
Yeah, it's a very nice little war done. And again, proud of having, because it's, you know, it was one of those shows that was really, really liked by, and there are lots of shows that people enjoy that aren't critically acclaimed. I mean, you know, no disrespect to it, but millions of people like NCIS, it didn't ever win anything.
Right.
Well, and it was like, it was the last of its kind too.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that holy grail that you just described of being able to unite critical reception, popularity, all of those things, it doesn't often happen. You get the one, you might not get the other.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys too. Wherever I am in the world, like wherever, you know, recently I was went on a bit of a vacation on safari, you know, and I was bumped into somebody who was from the UK, and they found out I was a director. What are you directing? You know, so I went through like all the shows I directed. I know the one of them. Yeah. They got to The Mentalist. Oh yeah, Mentalist.
Oh, yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Got there in the end.
Yeah.
I should have started with The Mentalist.
Yeah. This has been just the
phenomenal.
Most fascinating.
Amazing.
I mean, I knew it would be, but also just a pleasure, you know, to spend a couple hours.
Seeing you again.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for you know, rebooting these beautiful people and these beautiful ideas. It's been an absolute joy.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to inhabit these beautiful people and creating them, and we appreciate it. And you know, I can't think of a better way of wrapping this episode up and wrapping the season up, and by celebrating the fans and celebrating the people that have made this show what it was. You know, we were all there, and to your point, nobody sets out to make a bad show. You can have fun on a show and it still go nowhere. So the fact that this resonated with so many people is humbling, and we are deeply, deeply grateful. Yeah. Thank you, Chris Long. Thank you, Amanda Righetti.
This
has been
so good to see you guys.
A phenomenal series finale. Tim Kang and I have been
TV Police. Thank you all.
The TV
Hi.
You made it.
Look at that. Hey, I remember this. This is the golden
Monte
card.
Carlo.
I went to collected this.
Hey, look at this. Here we go.